I've been driving, and I've been driving, it seems like for over 2 hours. Isn't there any end to this hill, farmer? Why, heck, stranger, there ain't no hill here. You just lost your 2 hind wheels. My name is Marshall Dodge. Though I am a native and resident of the city of New York, the state of Maine is closer to my heart. It was 15 years ago that I started delving into Maine humor. Since that time, I have worked to put out 6 records of Downeast stories and have performed them from Maine to Texas. I'm going to tell you some Maine stories. Some of them have been told to me. Some I have come upon in books, and some I have made up myself. All of the stories reflect the spirit of old Maine, and all are stories, not jokes. They end gently with a poke rather than a punch, and most have a message that lives on through many tellings. I was sitting on the front porch of that farmhouse when I heard what sounded just like one of them foreign sports cars approaching down the road. And it went like this. Well, that sports car drove right on by the front of my house, and for some strange reason he stopped down by the blueberry barrens, started backing and filling, and heading back, apparently up to my place. That was him backing and filling. Of course, I didn't understand it because there's nothing for miles around my house. I stand there all alone, and there's nothing for 3-4 miles in either direction. I couldn't imagine why he was coming back up through. Well, he drove right on by and stopped down by the abandoned Esso station, half mile down the road. I heard him backing and filling. This time he stopped right out front, and the head poked its way out of the car and said, "Which way to East Vassalboro?" I said, "Don't you move a goddamned inch." Are you stuck? Well, I would be if I was trying to go anywhere. Well, what's the matter? Well, I was changing a tire and I lost the lug somewhere in these leaves. Well, why don't you take a lug from each of the other 3 wheels, put it on that wheel, and you'd have enough support all around to get you into town in good style. By jingoes, why didn't I think of that? Well, now, I may be crazy, but I ain't stupid. Where's this road go, mister? Don't go nowhere, mister. Stays right here. May I take this road to Portland? Well, sure, but seems to me Portland's got enough roads already. Well, is this the road to Portland? Yes, it is, but it's about 30,000 miles the way you're traveling. And there's some stretches of pretty wet wheeling. Is it fur to town? Well, it seems as though it's fur, but you'll find out it ain't. Well, we're going to Portland. Well, go right ahead. I ain't stopping you. Say, mister, can you tell me how to get to Alfred? Alfred? Now, let me see. Alfred. Well, now, it seems to me that you head down the road here toward Dry Lake. Keep going the way you're going. And, now, let me see. Dry Lake. That's right. You come to a crossroads in Dry Lake, and you could go left to Sabbath Day or right to Gray. Now, let me see, which one of them two roads do you take? No, you'd better turn right round at that crossroads. Come right back up where you started from, right here in Oxford, and head down the road. You go right down the road in the direction of Otis Field and Casco. Now, that's a lumpier road. That's why I didn't recommend it in the first place. But you head on down there until you get to Raymond. Now, when you get to Raymond, you're going to get into some problems because they got one of them newfangled traffic circles. And you go around that traffic circle, and you take a turn off there, and I'm trying to remember now whether it's the 180 degree or the 90 degree turn off there. Let me see. Go right around that traffic circle once more, and by the time you come around it once again, I'll have decided which one of them two turn-offs to take, 180 or 90. God almighty, you know, come to think of it, you can't get there from here. Well, if you can't tell me how to get to Alfred, at least you can tell me if there's a gas station nearby. You know, I don't know. Well, you don't know much, do you? No, but then again, I ain't lost.
Red Wing. They used to play that lot. We played it a lot for country dances, Red Wing, you know. Living in Indian Maine, shy little Fraser's name. Under the sky each night you'd lie and dream about it.
Albert Tyler was snoozing on his porch one morning when he was rudely awakened by a moose sniffing around amongst his parsnips. Quick as a wink, Albert had his gun off the wall and shot the moose in the hind leg, just to wound him, you know, so he wouldn't get away. The moose flopped over on his side, and Albert dragged him into the barn and bedded him down for the night with some hay and water, after cleaning the moose's wound, of course. In 2 days' time, Albert painted the barn a bright red with white lettering on the side so everybody could see it. See the moose, 10 cents, 15 cents special family rate. In a week's time, Albert's place looked more like a fair than a farm. A fella come through with his family and paid Albert his 15 cents to see the moose. Albert took one look at the man and one look at his family and said, "Here's your money, mister. I don't want it. It's worth a good deal more for my moose to see your family than it can be for your family to see my moose."
You get a good gang, good crowd together, you know, and you can go down on that, see. We get in here and get that shaft and hook the rope, and then you can come around here where I am, and I'll get around his head. Get over here. Get over. Get over. Get over. Get over now. I think he's a little mite touchy today on account of that nest we had them hornets last night, don't you, Walter?
Yeah, probably.
Back. You got your light in there?
Eben Roby went down to the Tremont Temple in Boston one Saturday night to hear Norman Thomas speak. Next Monday, he was preaching socialism to Enoch Turner over the back fence. You know, Enoch, under socialism, a per person shares everything. You mean to say, Eben, that if you had 2 hayricks, you'd give me one of them? Yup, Enoch, if I had 2 hayricks, I'd give you one of them. Do you mean to say, Eben, that if you owned 2 plows, you'd give me one of them? Yup. If I had 2 plows, I'd give you one of them. Or if you had 2 hogs, Eben, would you give me one of them? Damn you, Enoch. You know I've got 2 hogs.
You know, I'm pretty well pleased with you, old boy. We're not breaking the rest of my damn neck up there in that place.
Charles, you put down that newspaper and look at me. What do you want? Do you know what day it is? Sunday. This is our 46th wedding anniversary, Charles, and you should be ashamed of yourself for not thinking of it. You know, someone these days, something's going to happen to one of us, Charles, then you'll feel different. When it does, I'm moving up to Farmington. And another thing, Charles, I'm sick and tired of that double bed we're sleeping in. It's hot in the summer, cold in the winter, and it just ain't decent, that's all, Charles. Well, how do you propose we do our sleeping? In them twin beds of Aunt Clara's. Will she give 'em to us, you suppose? She said she would, Charles. Well, them twin beds is fine by me, Sarah, just as long as you do the walking. Frost, you say? Did I have any frost up to my place this morning, you ask? Well, now, let me tell you. This morning, I woke up at about 5 o'clock. Ain't never been a lay-a-bed in the Perkins family for as long as anyone can remember. I stepped into my pants and pulled on my boots, looked around for them teeth of mine, found 'em over by the washstand, applied some clutch to my gums, fitted them in place, and started down over them stairs. Now, them stairs, they ain't steep and narrow where you break your damn neck going down 'em. My stairs have 12-inch treads and only 6-inch risers. And alongside of them stairs of mine, I got a red cherry banister and at the foot a newel post made out of curly ash. Now, red cherry and curly ash is a combination that makes for the nicest effect, especially in the early morning light. Now, once you get down them stairs of mine, you pass through my sitting room. And you know that sitting room has a black plush sofa. When you're tired, there's nothing like that sofa for stretching out. On Thursday, when the bugle comes out, I don't think nothing of lying there till 8:30 before I go to bed. Out back of that sitting room stands the kitchen with an old black Clarion wood-burning stove right in the center. That Clarion will handle 10 or 12 dishes all at once. At the back is the simmering area for soup stock and chicken bones, flat irons and bed-warming stones. In the middle is the waiting area where the peas wait for the pork chops or the butter waits for the clams. In the front is the working area where I brew my tea and perk my coffee, sear my steak, and fry my bacon. I only burn oak and beech in that stove, And the flavor of that wood goes right through them stove lids and cooking pans and mellows the food. As for baking biscuits and bread, there ain't no finer oven in the world. And way on top of that clarion is a shelf for storing my bills and keeping my salt shakers dry. With them 4 regulators, you don't get no spills. But if you do have a spill, it forms little balls and hops down on the floor out of the way. Of course, that old clarion of mine takes more than a teaspoon of brains to operate, but that's probably why them stoves ain't so popular as they used to be. Tacked right onto that kitchen of mine, on the outside of the house, is the woodshed with the green wood stacked on the right side and the aged wood stacked on the left. Now that aged wood has got a good even fire. Some people say a woodshed tacked onto the side of the house is a fire hazard, but I say it's a real convenience in the winter. Beyond that woodshed of mine stands the privy. Now, I always say a fellow who ain't regular in his habits ain't going to amount to a hill of beans. And to be regular, it helps when you got yourself a good privy. You got to be mighty careful when you build yourself a privy that you get it quartering to the wind. It makes a mighty sight of difference with the draft that comes up through the holes. If you want a smooth privy seat, well, you'd better use boxwood. Mighty soft and velvety, I want to tell you. 20 rod or so back that privy of mine lies my cow pasture. A greener pasture in October you never seed. Though the Lord giveth and taketh away, my cows take and give back 3-fold. Well, as I say, I got out to that cow pasture of mine and leaned on the fence rail, and I happened to look down on the ground. And you know, there on the grass was just a little mite of frost. You know, I went up to Mr. Perkins' place t'other day, and Miss Perkins said, "Si, I've been thinking about building me a new privy, tearing down the old one." Well, I said, "Miss Perkins, it's your privy." He said, "Si, I'd like to have my new privy over by the chestnuts over there. I think that'd be just about the right place." Well, I said, "Miss Perkins, it's your privy." So we tore down the old privy and had just about built the hole for the new one when Miss Perkins said, "Si, I've been thinking some about this new privy of mine, and I figure if it's over by the chestnuts there, it's awful far from the house in the wintertime when you got to shovel snow in the middle of the night. So I figure," he said, "if it was over by the lilacs over there, it'd be much closer to the house and more convenient in the winter." Well, I said, "Miss Perkins, it's your privy." So we filled in the old hole and dug the new one over by the lilacs over there. And I'd no sooner got the floorboards in when Miss Perkins said, "Si, I've been thinking some about this new privy of mine. And it seems to me, with the prevailing wind being nor'-nor'east and the house standing south-southwest, it might be kind of uncomfortable for the lady folks in the kitchen during the summer months." Well, I said, "Miss Perkins, it's your privy." I said, "Where are you going to put the privy now, Miss Perkins?" He said, "I'd like it just halfway between the lilacs and the chestnuts, and neither would it be too far in the winter nor too close. in the summer. Well, I said, Mr. Perkins, it's your privy. So I filled in the hole over there by the lilacs and dug the new hole and had got the upright members on and was starting in on what you might call the interior decorating when Mr. Perkins come out and he said, "Si, I've been thinking some about this privy you're building, and I noticed you kind of got it framed up there for a one-holer. And I have specified from the very start that it's got to be a two-holer." Well, I said, Mr. Perkins, it's your privy, but now I don't want to seem to be dictating to you, Mr. Perkins, or nothing like that. But it seemed to me that if I went ahead and framed it up as a two-holer, and you was to come out some night, what you might say, pressed, before you made up your damn mind which one of them two holes to set on, it'd just be too late, that's all. It'd just be too late.
Right over your head.
Wait, ready or not?
Foster Fickett met his wife Hetty down to the Blueberry Festival at Union, back in the spring of '33. He proposed to her as she was spooning out the pie on his plate, and she accepted as he put the first spoonful in his mouth. That's the way things are transacted in Maine, speedy and efficient. Anyway, Hetty invited Foster home, meet her folks after the fair, and lying in the middle of the parlor was a dead horse. Foster said, "Hetty, that's the carcass of a dead horse, ain't it?" She said, "Yes, it is. But now, Foster, I told you a lot of things, but I never said I was tidy." A year later, Foster brung Hetty home an anniversary present, and it was a double-bitted axe. He carved her initials right on the end of the handle. Foster used to say, you know, she was out chopping wood before breakfast, first thing. Something a little mite fancy will tickle a woman most to death. Foster used to say that it's true that Hetty was quite big around the middle. But, he said, she's shade in the summer and warmth in the winter. In the winter of '42, Hetty's right lung collapsed. Then that spring, her left lung collapsed, and Foster had to slap her into an iron lung. But that was all right, because every Easter, Tuttle, the postman, used to take Hetty for a ride in the back of his mail truck to see the countryside. One Easter, Tut went round the corner too fast, and Hetty came right off the back of that truck onto the pavement, iron lung and all, of course, and Tut didn't even stop the truck. He just leaned out of the cab and said, "Steer to the curb, Hetty, steer to the curb, for heaven's sakes." In the winter of '52, Hetty died. As Foster used to say, my wife Hetty passed away at 5 o'clock on the morning of December 13th that year. You know, I bruised my thumb with a hammer, ran out of nails twice, and split 3 covers before I got the 4th one nailed down tight. I strained my back lifting Hetty to the wagon and pulled the halter loose as Bessie the horse came out of the barn. So poor Bessie had to ride into town pulling crooked all the way. Got out of control like coming down that last hill, and Hetty shot straight off the back of the wagon, straight through the post office window. I jumped off the wagon, ran inside the post office to make sure no one was hurt, and there was Tut-Tuttle staring at me through the stamped window. Lucky I had the grating down, he said. It sure was, I replied. Did you pass the preacher and the undertaker on your way out to town? Tut asked. No, I guess I missed him, Tut, I said. You know, my day's been one long fizzle from beginning to end. Well, since famine got pretty bad, I made a little extra on the side as census taker. And God Almighty, you should have seen the sights I saw. On these back country roads in the state of Maine, why, I come upon a family that had nothing but twins. Why, heck, on the front lawn there must have been 6 or 7 sets of twins. Inside there were 4 or 5 more. And I asked the lady, I said, excuse me, lady, but I don't mean to seem to be nosy or nothing like that, but tell me something. Do you get twins every time? She said, oh, God, no. She says, thousands of times I don't get nothing at all. Bless her hat. I came across another lady. She didn't have twins, but she sure did have an awful lot of kids, and all over the front lawn. And I went inside, and there she stood, stark naked. I said, oh, excuse me, lady, but I said, I'll come right back. And she said, oh, no, you come right in. I'm a nudist, that's all. Well, I said, all right. So I went inside, I sat down, and I said, now, I'd like the names of your children. Well, she said, there's Charles and George and Harris and Peter, William, Jerome, Abigail, Helen, Susan, Sarah. Well, I said, excuse me, lady, but how many children do you have? Well, she says, I got 17. Well, I said, lady, you ain't a nudist. You just never had time to get your clothes on.